Making headlines this hour, President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says the government's measures to effectively address the foreign currency crisis are research-based and expected to bring about positive changes. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says that considerable work must be carried out jointly by the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sports and Fitness and sports associations to achieve the target of having athletes who are completely free from tobacco use represented in every national team. The Maldives and China discusses ways to maximize opportunities under the China-Maldives Free Trade Agreement.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to PSM News in English with me, Fatma Zaina Rifat. And now for the news in detail. President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says the government's measures to effectively address the foreign currency crisis are research-based and expected to bring about positive changes.
The president made the statement while speaking on PSM's Nation Chat program. Addressing concerns regarding the dollar crisis, President Muiz said the government is working on strengthening the country's economy, including formulating policies regarding the dollar issues as well as enforcing existing laws that were not previously being enforced. The president acknowledged criticism of the measures but said some politicians may be speaking against them for political reasons, while the public generally supports the government's efforts. He said the public is aware that the measures are necessary to resolve the country's economic situation as well as the foreign currency crisis. He assured that the government will not introduce measures that hinder economic growth, but that the measures will produce positive results. The president added that the measures are fact-based and that they were developed after consultations, extensive technical evaluations and studies. The Central Bank Maldives Monetary Authority or MMA is working to strengthen the banking industry and increase the number of domestic banks. The central bank hopes to increase the amount of foreign currency earnings circulating through Maldivian banks. The Foreign Currency Act is being amended to require foreign currency earners, including resorts and guest houses, to deposit 40% of their foreign exchange earnings with local banks each month.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says that the quality of the Tilamale Bridge currently under construction is being independently assured by the same company that handled quality assurance of the Sinamale Bridge.
The president made the remarks while speaking on PSM's Nation Chat program. The Tilamale Bridge project will connect Male, Vilimale, Tilafushi and Kulifalu with highways and other connecting roads being built alongside the bridge. The bridge, causeways and connecting roads will span about 6.7 kilometers. The project is valued at around $500 million, comprising a $100 million grant and a $400 million line of credit from India. The Maldivian government is also spending for the project. In his remarks, the president said the Tilamale Bridge project would significantly benefit the region's economic and social development. The president noted that Male and Vilimale have already been linked via the bridge. However, asphalt laying will begin only after the bridge is connected to Kulifalu, he said, adding that he hoped for the project to be completed within a year. Speaking on the bridge's quality, the president said the company hired for quality assurance is world-renowned and that the same company was used for the Sinamale Bridge. He noted the same director who was involved in the Sinamale Bridge project is now leading the Tilamale Bridge quality assurance. Under the previous government, the project was contracted for completion during its term, but only 30% had been completed by the end of the period. After the current government took office, it worked with the Indian government and contractors to speed up construction. The Ministry of Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development said 76% of the overall project has now been completed.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says engineering and science education is being given special priority by the government.
Last year, the president designated 30th August as Engineers' Day, linked to the inauguration of the Sinamale Bridge on August 30th, 2018. Speaking on PSM's Nation Chat program, President Muiz noted the importance of dedicating a special day to recognize engineers and their services. He also emphasized the need to create awareness among youth about the field. The president said from among students pursuing higher studies in the Maldives, too few students are pursuing science, mathematics and engineering, while more are choosing business, management, and law. Noting that one of the aims of celebrating Engineers Day is to attract youth towards the field, he said the government wants to encourage young people to enter engineering and science-based fields and increase the number of Maldivians trained in these areas. He specifically highlighted civil, electronics, and mechanical engineering as fields that could benefit national development, noting that it would reduce reliance on foreign engineers by developing a larger pool of Maldivian engineers who can contribute to infrastructure projects and the economy. Engineers Award will be introduced this year to recognize the achievements, productivity, and contribution of Maldivian engineers and other professionals. The award aims to encourage young people to pursue engineering education. This year's Engineers Award will be presented in 10 categories.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says that considerable work must be carried out jointly by the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Sports and Fitness and sports associations to achieve the target of having athletes who are completely free from tobacco use represented in every national team.
As part of ongoing efforts to build a healthy tobacco-free population, the government implemented its generational tobacco ban policy towards the end of last year. In line with this policy, the cabinet decided on the 18th of August to make national team athletes a group protected from tobacco use. Speaking about the issue on PSM News' Nation Chat program, President Dr. Muiz said the goal was to ensure that the Maldives' national athletes remain free from tobacco. He stressed that achieving this objective would require extensive work by the Sports Ministry in collaboration with associations and other relevant organizations. The President said all necessary measures must be taken jointly by institutions to encourage athletes to stay away from tobacco use and make it easier for them to do so. President Muiz said the government's efforts were aimed at creating a healthier population of young people. He said that if the set targets were achieved, significant improvements could be made in the health and performance of Maldivian athletes. He also expressed hope that the country's youth population could become tobacco-free as a result of the ongoing efforts, saying the targets could be achieved with determination and commitment. The cabinet decided earlier this month to establish specific targets aimed at ensuring that athletes participating in national teams are free from tobacco use. Among the key decisions taken were measures to raise public awareness about the dangers of tobacco and nicotine, as well as actions related to implementing the generational ban on tobacco. The cabinet also decided to expand a national campaign to raise awareness about the dangers of tobacco and nicotine, with the participation of youth associations on various islands and groups active in sports.
President Dr. Mohammad Muiz says that rather than responding to statements made by political figures, his priority is to find ways to fulfill the promises he made to the people.
Speaking in response to a question on PSM's Nation Chat program regarding political figures who have said they will defeat President Dr. Mohammad Muiz in the upcoming presidential election, the president said his focus remains on delivering the commitments he made. President Muiz said that instead of concerning himself with what politicians say, he is focused on finding ways to fulfill the promises made to the people and said he would succeed in doing so. The president said progress is being made across all areas in fulfilling his commitments. He added that he would continue working to implement the initiatives needed by the people. President Muiz said his administration is working to fulfill its commitments in areas including strengthening the national economy, foreign affairs, social development, business, youth development, and healthcare, in line with the promises made. Among the president's key pledges are achieving progress in urban development and finding a comprehensive solution to the issues of housing. He has also placed particular emphasis on strengthening the capabilities of the National Defense Force by improving its resources and infrastructure, as well as promoting and strengthening national identity. In addition to working to sustain the economic development of the Maldives, President Dr. Muiz has pledged to undertake numerous measures to address challenges in the health and education sectors.
The Maldives and China discusses ways to maximize opportunities under the China-Maldives Free Trade Agreement, FTA.
The discussions took place during an official visit by the Minister of Economic Development, Transport and Trade, Mohammad Said, to China. Minister Said met Hainan Province Governor Liu Xiaoming to deepen trade ties and advance mutual economic cooperation between the two countries. Discussions focused on making greater use of opportunities created by the FTA and expanding joint initiatives aimed at driving sustained economic growth. The minister said the Maldives commended the Chinese government's readiness to support the country's development priorities under the leadership of President Dr. Mohamed Muiz and Chinese President Xi Jinping. The discussions also sought to further strengthen economic cooperation in line with the understandings reached between the two leaders during President Muiz's state visit to Beijing in 2024. During his visit, Minister Said also visited the Haikan Group Product Exhibition Hall, where he met Deputy General Manager and other senior team of Hainan State Farms Investment Holding Group. Discussions centered on enhancing cooperation in food security and regional connectivity, as well as expanding fisheries exports from the Maldives to Hainan.
The Speaker of Parliament, Abdul Rahim Abdullah, meets with the Speaker of the Australian House of Representatives, Milton Dick, to discuss parliamentary cooperation and ways to further strengthen relations between the Maldives and Australia. The meeting was held on the sidelines of the second Interparliamentary Speakers Conference in Phnom Penh, Cambodia. During the meeting, the two speakers discussed parliamentary cooperation and further strengthening the close relations between Maldives and Australia. The Maldives and Australia established diplomatic relations in 1974. The two countries have developed cooperation in areas including education, maritime affairs, and maritime security, while also working together through various international agreements. At the second Interparliamentary Speakers Conference, Speaker Abdullah is scheduled to address the theme Unity for Peace and Stability, strengthening international law and resolving issues through peaceful means. The Maldivian delegation accompanying the speaker includes Huadu Constituency Parliamentarian Mohammed Shahid, Machangoli South Constituency Parliamentarian Mustafa Hussain, Farisma Thoda Constituency Parliamentarian Ashraf Rashid, Chief of Bureau of the Parliament Ahmed Nihan Hussain Manik, and the Assistant Director General of the Foreign Relations Department Zuyina Badri. The Interparliamentarian Speakers Conference brings together speakers and senior officials of parliaments to discuss issues including peace, international law, conflict resolution, and sustainable development. The Anti-Corruption Commission announces the submission of the Asset Recovery Bill concerning the state confiscation of assets obtained through criminal activity to Parliament by the government marks a historic and notable milestone in the nation's efforts to combat corruption. In an issued statement, the regulatory body welcomed the decision by President Dr. Mohamed Muiz. The proposed legislation will provide the necessary legal authority to prevent acts of corruption and reclaim illicit benefits obtained from major crimes back to the state. The oversight watchdog maintained that statutory framework would block criminals from acquiring wealth through unlawful avenues, describing the measure as an essential step towards safeguarding public resources for future generations and an added strength to the collaborative efforts being carried out by our institutions. The Commission urged Parliament should pass the bill as swiftly as possible in its technically most complete form so practical implementation can begin. The oversight body affirmed its commitment to working closely with state institutions and international partners to operate the system to its fullest potential, uphold the rule of law, and establish the highest standard of justice in the Maldives. Presented on Wednesday by Ali Fazad, the Member of Parliament for Central Formula, on behalf of the administration, the bill aims to prevent perpetrators of major criminal offences from utilizing financial gains, while seizing unlawfully acquired assets and closing avenues to generate further profit. Nvidia expects to report another quarter of explosive growth when it releases fiscal second quarter results after the market closes, with investors focused on whether demand for artificial intelligence infrastructure remains strong enough to justify the chipmaker's lofty valuation.
Wall Street expects revenue of about $92 billion and adjusted earnings per share of roughly $2.09, slightly above Nvidia's own forecast for quarterly revenue of $91 billion. The results are likely to hinge on growth in Nvidia's data center business, which has been fueled by spending from major cloud companies racing to build AI capabilities. Investors will also look for updates on demand for Nvidia's Blackwell AI chips and for any signs that customer spending is slowing. Guidance for coming quarters will be closely watched as analysts say the market is increasingly focused on the durability of the AI boom rather than on quarterly earnings beats alone. Nvidia has consistently exceeded expectations in recent quarters, but its shares have often struggled to rally afterward because of already elevated investor expectations. Investors will also monitor management's comments on China and the impact of U.S. export controls, an area that remains a key uncertainty for the world's most valuable semiconductor company.
The World Food Programme warns that escalating conflicts and shrinking funding were driving global hunger to crisis levels, leaving aid agencies close to having nothing to give at all.
Acting Executive Director Carl Skau said nearly 300 million people were acutely food insecure, triple the level 6 years ago, while WFP received only 40% of the funding it needed last year. Speaking after briefing the UN Security Council, Skau said waiting for famine declarations amounted to a total failure of duty and urged immediate action to protect civilians, infrastructure, and humanitarian workers.
Today I brought to the Council what WFP frontline teams are witnessing every day. I've also had opportunity to visit many of those operations, so I spoke to the Council about how hunger and conflict really looks in practice, how that cycle of hunger and conflict looks in practice, drawing from that first-hand experience during my visits, and that how this vicious cycle is now escalating. And that waiting for a famine being declared is a total failure of duty.
He warned that disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz and Red Sea, combined with escalating Black Sea tensions, had created a triple choking point. Skau said 1/3 of global wheat exports passes through the Bosphorus Strait and cautioned that further Black Sea escalation would have dire consequences for food security worldwide.
Netherlands coach Xavi Hernandez promises an attractive style of football, but more importantly, a desire to win during his tenure with the national team.
The former Barcelona midfield great and later coach has signed a 4-year deal through the next World Cup and promised he would look to inject new energy into the Dutch, who were eliminated in the last 32 at this year's finals.
I personally believe a lot in this generation. We have, as you know, we have many talents, but the most important thing for me is to create a team, a group, and a big family in order to compete well.
Xavi is the first foreigner in almost 50 years to take charge of the Dutch since Ernst Happel at the 1978 World Cup, but already describes himself as a devotee of the Dutch total football approach, which the likes of Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff introduced at Barca, where he played most of his career.
Hammering and lining up stones, restoration teams works in Aleppo's old markets to transform ancient crumbled shops and alleyways into a vibrant hub once again.
Mohammad Yasser Maulawi, director of the first administrative block in Aleppo Governorate that includes Old Aleppo, said more than half of the old markets have already been rehabilitated through joint work led by the Aga Khan Development Network, UNESCO, the Syrian Development Organization, and the Ministry of Culture. The market comprises a network of vaulted stone alleyways and carved wooden facades that was once a major tourist attraction and a busy cosmopolitan trading hub on the ancient Silk Road from China. Its many narrow alleys have a combined length of 13 kilometers, selling everything from soap to jewelry to clothing. Before Syria's ruinous civil war struck, Aleppo was a busy commercial powerhouse and a proud historic center, its long heritage on display in ancient landmarks still used by modern-day traders, travelers, or worshippers. The war that erupted across Syria in 2011 exploded into Aleppo in the summer of 2012 when rebel fighters took over the east of the city. The rebels hoped their march into Aleppo marked the beginning of the end for then-President Bashar al-Assad, while the government in Damascus pledged to swiftly drive them out. Neither side achieved those goals, and the war in Aleppo dragged on for more than 4 years. As the fighting ground on, the city itself crumbled under airstrikes from government forces and bombardment by both sides. Sections of the medieval souk, or market, were ruined or burnt down. Gradual efforts started to revive the city following its capture by Assad forces in December 2016. Aleppo's Old City is one of several locations in Syria declared World Heritage Sites by UNESCO, the United Nations Cultural Agency.
And that's all the news we have for you at this moment. Thank you for watching PSM News.